Do you know what today is? Today is the day where we uncover 4 players that have league-winning upside that can take your team all the way to the top. What is going on, Headline Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there today, where yes, we're talking about a few players that kind of just have that league-winning upside potential this year, that if you draft them where they're currently going and things pop off for these guys, they're going to carry you to fantasy championships in 2022. Now, before we get into these 4 names that you're absolutely gonna love, I got to announce a couple winners and get you a light goal, right? I was giving away the signed Jalen Waddle jersey on a video just the other day. It's been like, what, 24 hours, 36 hours, whatever it's been, you guys are crushing light goals. So the winner of the signed Jalen Waddle jersey is going to be none other than Jacob De San Andreas. I mean, Jacob, I got to ask, were you named after the fault line, Jacob? Because that's the first thing I thought of when I saw your last name. Congratulations. Make sure you hit me up from this account at info@thefantasyheadliners.com and I'll get you hooked up. And then we also have a couple draft guys to give away from another video, the What is Happening with Running Backs video, Ethan Price and Thomas Gofus. Congratulations. Make sure you send me that email as well so I can hook you up. But most importantly, we need to focus for a second. If you guys love all these giveaways, if you like us doing things every single week, jerseys, footballs, helmets, all that kind of stuff, we couldn't be doing all this without our friends at Pristine Auction. How do we continue to get these items? I need you guys to head over to pristineauction.com, sign up for a free account. It doesn't cost you anything. Sign up for that free account. They're going to send you a $10 credit. So if you find something on their site that you're interested in, you automatically get $10 off. But make sure, most importantly, use that referral code Headliners when you do so, and we will continue to get amazing items to give away. Don't wait. Do that now if you could for me, please. But now, how about a light goal for this video? You guys have been breaking them like through the roof way too fast. I mean, I'm impressed. I'm a little bit surprised, but I'm definitely impressed with the light goal for this video. 2,137. 2137. If we can get that many likes on this video, I'll give away another 2 draft guides to 2 random people down below in the comment section. So leave that comment, hit the like button. And here we go, talking about league-winning upside players. And let's just talk about this player right off the top, because a lot of people right now want to talk about Trey Lance. And I really do not blame them whatsoever. It's finally Trey Day in the Bay, right? Quarterback 14 currently, the 102nd pick overall. And the word has already come out from the 49ers that they're turning the ball over to him here this year. Now, of course, in the coming weeks, as training camp highlights come out, this ADP is going to climb. But heaven forbid he incompletes some passes just like he did yesterday. And all you got is damn Chicken Littles all over the place talking about the sky is falling. But in reality, this really is going to depend on when you draft, right? But with the depth at the quarterback position, there's an argument for like 15 guys to be inside the top 10. Now, there's a chance that Lance is going to kind of hover right around quarterback 11 to quarterback 13 the remainder of this offseason. And while I think that's a pretty fair ranking, I could see Trey Lance finishing as high as quarterback 6 or 7 this year. Is it solely just because of the talent he possesses? No, it's the offense in which he plays in. So many people think Jimmy G just sucks. But in the 2 seasons in which he's played in at least 15 games with the San Francisco 49ers, he's had at least 3,800 passing yards and 20 passing touchdowns. And let's not forget that he isn't the mobilest of quarterbacks either, so we're really not getting a rushing bonus from Jimmy G. Good old Jimmy finished 2021 70 points shy of being a top 10 quarterback in fantasy football. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a lot of points, right? But think of it this way. We know Trey Lance is a mobile quarterback. Do you think he can run for 520 yards and 3 touchdowns this season? Because if he does that and just stays in the neighborhood of what Jimmy G did with 3,800 passing yards and 20 touchdowns, this guy's going to impress a lot of people and score a lot of fantasy points. I mean, honestly, these numbers seem actually like they could be a little bit low. 3 times in 2021, Trey Lance played in at least 50% of the team's offensive snaps. In those games, he played a total of 166 snaps, yet rushed the ball 31 times. That's an average of 10 times per game. Seems pretty reasonable. In those same games, he averaged just over 5 yards per carry at 5.1. 10 carries over a 17-game season is 170 carries for all you mathematicians out there. And then when you take those 170 carries and multiply it by 5.1 yards per carry, you're sitting right around 876 yards rushing, with maybe a minimum of 2 to 3 rushing touchdowns there as well. Even if Lance is conservative through the air and only duplicates what Jimmy G did, 3,800 passing yards and 20 touchdowns, but yet adds in that rushing upside, we're looking at top 10 lock. But Jake, he's not going to rush that much. Cool, we really don't need him to. His rushing projections that we just did gave him an extra 105 fantasy points. We only need 70-ish to crack the top 10, right? You realize that if we add in 105 rushing points to Jimmy G's totals just last year, we're like up inside the top 5. Now, for those of you that are bringing up interceptions or the overall passing numbers, Jimmy still averaged 12 interceptions a year himself. Those numbers are already baked in, and Trey will probably be right around that same number as well. Pretty close to a wash. The 3,800 passing yards and 20 touchdown number, well, that comes out to only be 224 yards a week and 1.2 touchdowns per game. That doesn't sound overly crazy. 18 quarterbacks had more than 224 passing yards a game last season, and 19 of them had over 1.2 touchdowns per game. These are not elite numbers by any means. It's middle of the pack at best. Rushing points are the key here. I love the creativity of a Kyle Shanahan offense and the way they make the average players look really good. You get Lance outside the top 12, and then he finishes inside the top 5 to 8. All of a sudden, you're looking at a potential league winner. I mean, I don't know about you, but that kind of excites me when we get into Trey Lance. Can you tell? I'm a little emotional right now. Let's not stop, and let's talk about Breshad Hall. And here's why I'm talking about Breshad Hall. Every year, it seems like there's some crazy rookie hype surrounding rookie running backs. As of late, we've had Najee Harris and Jonathan Taylor. I mean, big running backs that can handle 3-down workloads. I mean, typically those guys are drafted a little bit earlier. But right now, in half PPR, consensus ADP between Fantrax, Yahoo, and Sleeper have Breshad Hall as running back 23 at the end of the 4th round. Now, I get it. He's a running back for the Jets, and the Jets are still the Jets, but the Jets are looking way better, and they're really moving in the right direction. Their offensive line greatly improved. 2020 first-round tackle Mekhi Becton, he is back from injury. They acquired guard Laken Tomlinson from San Francisco this offseason. They have Elijah Moore back and healthy. They drafted Garrett Wilson. They have Corey Davis, who's looking pretty fit in camp. Braxton Honeynutt Berrios there in the slot at times to go along with new tight ends CJ Who's Your Mama and Tyler Conklin. Then you add in the fact you have the Cougar Slayer Zach Wilson in his second year, who's currently walking into the locker room with a lot of confidence, which is probably expected after taking down Stifler's mom this offseason, but still, we saw improvements late in the season from Zach Wilson, and this offense as a whole is very much improved. So how does Breshad Hall take all of this and turn himself into a league winner? With touches. Touches he's going to get, both early down and goal line, and then we'll sprinkle in a little bit of passing work as well, because I do expect Michael Carter to still be a part of this backfield and have a role every single week. Now, does Breshad Hall see Najee Harris volume from last year? No. He's not going to be anywhere near that 381 total touch number that Najee had in 2021. But 250, 275-ish, for sure. 220 carries, 30 receptions or so is a very fair starting point. But if that's what he gets, what are we looking like for fantasy production? Now, I'm not going to sit here and take his inflated college averages and tell you he's going to replicate that in the NFL. Because in college, he averaged 5.5 yards per carry and 9 yards per reception. So let's drop those down to a little bit more of a realistic projection of about 4.7 yards per carry and 8 yards per reception. 220 carries at 4.7 yards per carry comes out to be 1,034 rushing yards, and then we add in the 30 receptions at 8 yards per reception and have 240 receiving yards. That's 1,274 total yards with 30 receptions. That comes out to be 142.4 fantasy points in half PPR scoring. That in and of itself puts him in the range of running back 28 overall, which was Tony Pollard last year. But we haven't even talked about touchdowns yet, and that's where this gets really interesting really fast. Breshad Hall is only 9 touchdowns away from being a Verge top 10 running back in fantasy football. Adding 9 touchdowns to the already 142.4 fantasy points puts him up at 196.4, which means he would have outscored Alvin Kamara last year at running back 11. Now, don't get me wrong, 9 touchdowns is no easy task, but if he gets it, we're looking at potential league-winning upside, especially since where he's being drafted, he could be your running back 3 on your roster. I mean, that's another guy sounding pretty good, right? I mean, we could just stop there, but nope, now we're talking about Kadarius Toney. And full disclosure, I really want this one to happen badly because he's currently sitting at wide receiver 47. That's 117th overall, and this isn't a talent issue. We just need him on the field and targeted more. We have Sterling Shepard, who's coming off of a torn Achilles, which means that there are some available targets, and it also means that we probably see a little bit of some Wan'Dale Robinson. Ugh. It comes down to 2 things, really, in my opinion. Kadarius Toney's health, and can Daniel Jones just not suck all season? Yeah, I know, kind of worries me a little bit too, but Kadarius Toney is cheap at this point, right? Little risk. For a second, though, humor me. Let's just say that things changed due to the new coaching staff here in New York with Brian Daboll coming over from Buffalo. Maybe we can get a little bit of that Buffalo magic. Kadarius Toney is kind of like the off-brand Tyreek Hill. Do you know what Dr. Skipper is? Kind of similar to that. Not quite Dr. Pepper, but in the same ballpark. He only played in 7 games last year in which he saw at least 30 offensive snaps per game. Only one time did he play over 66% of those snaps. Heck, he only received 45 catchable targets last year. But we saw a glimpse of that ceiling, and we saw it in Week 5 against the Dallas Cowboys when he hauled in 10 receptions on 13 targets for 189 yards. Could you imagine what Kadarius Toney could be with 120 targets this season? It could be huge. That would put him in the neighborhood of 90 receptions for 1,100 yards and 5 touchdowns. That would be 185 fantasy points and in the ballpark of wide receiver 16. Don't forget, he's currently going as wide receiver 47. That alone makes him that top 15 though. But with that big playability, could we maybe see less receptions, less volume, but more yardage and touchdowns? Because when we're getting the receptions, we're getting bigger chunks of yardage. So how about this? Could we see Kadarius Toney within the neighborhood of 70 receptions for 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns? That's 183 fantasy points, and he still finishes as wide receiver 16. Either way, the numbers check out for him to be Verge top 15, despite being drafted outside the top 45 at the position. Now it comes down to health, availability there for him, and quarterback play. But if you take a chance and they utilize him better in this offense and he can stay on the field, the guy is going to absolutely boom and help be great depth for your fantasy team here in 2022. I mean, man, the potential for Kadarius Toney is absolutely huge. I don't know if I've ever compared somebody to Dr. Skipper before. That may be a first. What's not a first is me talking about Chase Claypool here this offseason, though. But I got to continue to mention him again. He's really struggled the last couple years since Big Ben had to transition from being a big down-the-field thrower. The passing volume was still there in Pittsburgh, but it was a lot more shorter underneath routes, and that's not really Chase Claypool's game. Chase even said it himself on the I Am Athlete podcast that it seemed like Big Ben kind of shied away from him in the red zone for whatever reason last year. But the offense here in Pittsburgh in 2022 could be a lot more conducive for the play style of Chase Claypool. Conducive, that's another word I don't know if I've ever said before. But with Mitchie Biscuits under center Mitchell Trubisky and newly drafted Kenny Pickett, both of these guys have supported wide receivers down the field in the past. Don't forget Allen Robinson in Chicago with Mitchie Biscuits and Jordan Addison in college at Pittsburgh with Pickett. One of the big benefits, though, is these quarterbacks' ability to escape the pocket and extend plays down the field. That plays right into the hands, literally, of Chase Claypool, and you can really see confidence in him here this offseason. He's currently going as wide receiver 41 at the 104th overall pick. He finished last season as wide receiver 41, and now the situation is better, and he hasn't climbed at all. He was just the wide receiver 19 2 years ago as a rookie. He's averaged over 14 yards per reception over the last 2 years, and he's had over 100 targets in each of the last 2 years, so you know he's involved in this offense. Now, two things that do need to improve here this year for this to happen. He's got to stop dropping the ball. He had 7 drops in 2021, but he also needs more catchable targets. Only had 83 of those last year as well. Nothing monumental, though, easily things he can overcome this year. We could also see him line up in the slot a little more in 2022, and I absolutely love that. We're looking at a guy that could easily go out there and get 80 receptions for 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns, which would make him a top 12 overall wide receiver in fantasy football. But no, I haven't forgotten about newly drafted George Pickens. I haven't forgotten about Deontay Johnson. I haven't forgotten about the Muth or Najee. It's just the skill set that Chase possesses in this offense could really make him pop if he can just get the same, if not a little bit more volume here this year. But what I love about these guys here is that you're really not overly investing high draft capital in them. You're not having to spend super early picks and take a lot of risk. You're getting, especially Chase Claypool and Kadarius Toney, you're getting these guys later on, so the risk isn't there, but the reward potentially, league winning. Now, there are 2 other guys. I have them as honorable mentions right now because I need to do my homework a little bit more. I'm never going to sit here in front of the camera and come up with a take on a player that I haven't done my homework on. So 2 names I want to make sure I throw out here that we're going to talk about at a further date. Ronald Jones and Brandon Ayuk. I know, just to hear me say Ronald Jones on this show is absolutely crazy, but with CEH kind of already banged up, Ronald Jones could get a great opportunity. Currently going 107th overall, running back 39, and then Brandon Ayuk paired with Trey Lance could be some deep field magic that I really need to dive into a little bit more. He's currently wide receiver 39, 96th pick overall. Just a couple guys to kind of keep on the back burner that we're going to talk about here a little bit later, but that I wanted to make sure I mention in this episode. But this is exciting to me because these are the types of guys that when these guys pop, we find so much more success. But a lot of people will just write them off as you go into the draft. A lot of people look at this ADP and they're like, I don't understand that ADP. On Underdog, it says this, or on DraftKings, it says this for best ball. Stop looking at best ball ADP and thinking it has anything to do with redraft ADP. It doesn't. You draft best ball way different than you draft redraft. I see people all the time talking about their exposure to a certain player, which tells me they're drafting players at different spots, so they're not always having the same rosters. That's what happens in best ball. So I see things like that, and there's a few other little nuances like that as well that a lot of people are getting confused with. And I think the reason why is there's a lot of content creators out there that are telling people, hey, you want to make sure you use this ADP. It's real. It's a real draft. People are investing money, so they're taking it seriously. They're only telling you that because they want you to use their stupid promo code when you sign up so they can make some money off of it, because that is not helping you when it comes to redraft fantasy football. And I wanted to make sure I drove that point home just a little bit. Don't use best ball ADP and associate it anything to do with your year-long redraft fantasy football leagues. And there I go, about ready to Ric Flair woo up in here again. I can't do it in back-to-back episodes. I'm going to start having to do that all the time and woo-saw, start rubbing the earlobes or whatever it is. But do me a favor, if you enjoyed the content, hit that like button. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. We got a ton of absolute bangers coming up here in the coming weeks that you're going to enjoy, and it's really going to set you up to succeed in 2022 fantasy football. So hit that like button. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here for the day and dive into a few more players because, man, the juices are flowing right now, and I'm looking forward to it. But for now, hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day, a great week. We'll talk to you later.